Hey, hey, hey. Now I realize that this is sort of directed at Gina Maria, Gina Maria Colvin Hill YouTube channel, because as I mentioned before, there's no coincidence. I used to ask her questions, not that she would ever respond. She's not required to respond because I do not impose my energy or my will on anybody. Okay? But I post questions up there that allow her audience, including her, to see the question. Now she becomes aware of the question. And what does that do? Hopefully it brings a greater state of awareness that now they're aware of what somebody else is saying. So we learn through each other, right? Okay, so what happens is she'll put something up which is known as a visual. That's visual information, which are based on computer codes. One, we're in a simulator, okay? You're not manifesting like, poof, there's an apple. That doesn't happen, does it? But you can manifest your reality based on the vibration that you experience. So your vibration is the vibration through which you perceive what you are in your mirror, the energy that you are that you experience in your mirror. So if you are what love is, then everything that is in that mirror, which is creation, which is nature, then you're in love with nature, which means you're in love with you, because that's a bicamera mirror. Two magnets on the planet. Magnets are mirrors. So when she puts up, for example, Greenland is melting at the fastest rate that it ever has before. That information was made available about this was feeding the global warming stuff, right? Not that it's not warming. Not that it's not true. Remember, true and false can be both true and false at the same time. That's the difference between Westgate and Eastgate. Because it's all about vibration, which is all about perception, which is what you experience in your mirror. That's called a timeline. That means the sequence upon which we are experiencing what you are with me as a polarity integrator is always at zero, so it's always in balance, which is always in love with itself. Because that's the energy that you are, that you experience yourself with in your mirror. That means I'm not going to experience the same things on my timeline at the same rate of vibration that others are, because they're not running the same vibration. So they're not running the same timeline. So how does this play into what other people present to you? Remember, presenters. So I realized as a child, what is in my mirror? What is in my mirror is called programming codes in a simulator. Okay, so when I was a child and the first TV came into my house, that TV is trying to program me, which means this is what it's trying to put in my memory. I don't want that in my memory. Why? Because it's not what love is. So now you're choosing what you're going to put in memory, what you're not going to put in memory, and you choose to put in memory what has value. Why? Because it has future-proof past value. So that humanity has a future. So that our children have a future. So if you are what love is, you know that your children have a future because that's what they're going to experience through you. As both the seed and the birth giver. So that's why mankind, base 12, right? Now began to understand what happened with the war in heaven between the underworld invading Eden. Right? Eastgate's heaven. So I'm reminded with this, with so many experiences that I could just list. But I'll just give you one. When I was in college, I was doing a lot of research, a lot of historical research. And in this particular example, because I was at the University of Arkansas, I was taking a class in which I was going to do some investigative journalism. So that's what Maria Colvin Hill is doing. She's investigating things. And then she's bringing to your attention what has been brought to her attention. So I asked her a question. It's not a coincidence that you're experiencing what you are in your own mind to go to the places to look at what you do and then present that to other people. Okay? So that's not a coincidence. So in other words, it's like a Pied Piper in a way, which is like spoon feeding. So I'm looking at all the information that she's presenting, which all has to do with history, which is time looping stuff. So now we're going back in history to experience something that's based on history that has been put in visual format by going to Wiki. So now Wiki is giving you the information. Now you're experiencing the information. Now you're putting that in RAM. That's called building a library. Okay, so you're a library builder. But you're choosing what to put in your library because that's your life book. That's the story that you're telling. See, so then you're going to tell your children, this is what I experienced because this is what I put in RAM that I can relay to you and let you know what it is that I experienced from what I learned from what's in my mirror. Based on the vibration of the perception that I have of what's in my mirror. Okay, so what she's doing is she's putting up her mirror. And she's saying, hey, look, this is what's happening in Greenland. I don't know that's what's happening in Greenland. I'm not in Greenland. I'm simply looking at a computer screen, no different than looking at a program app, right? An API, which is an application program interface. Okay, so you realize what program codes are. Okay, so what she's doing is she's preventing visual information, computer codes, and what she's doing is presenting data. She's saying this is what's happening in Greenland. I don't know that that's what's happening in Greenland. That could be on a different timeline. See what I'm saying? That's why, like, even with Patty Broussard, she would tell me, well, I got all my experiences that I can remember going back 3 billion years. And then I'm going, okay, how many things can you remember? When was the last time you had your memory erased? Because when you're at zero, when you're a mated chip, you're always experiencing what love is, which is the law of least effort. So that means I may not experience what you're experiencing, which is in your mirror. What you're telling me is happening in Greenland. Because who's presenting that data to you? So you already know, because Yellow Rose for Texas brought this out, they lie about everything. So who are you getting your data from? Who do you think you're getting the data from? The data provider. Who's the data provider? The artificial intelligence. Okay? So you're providing a source of information from which you're now aware what that information is. Now you're recording it in your RAM and you're presenting it to others. It's going to get recorded in their RAM. This is what's happening in Greenland. I can't say that for certain because I'm not there. Do I want to believe that's what's actually happening? No. Why? Because why would I want to experience something that doesn't represent what love is? Because that's what I am. Okay? So that's why when I was a child, I realized everybody's running a different timeline because not everybody perceives the universe that they live in, which is in their mirror, at the same rate of speed, which is their vibration, which is their core. Okay? So this is where I said, listen, you got your life book, the stories that you tell, I got the stories that I tell, and they're not the same stories. And now you can go into any library and read a story about Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, okay? And go back in time with, what's his name, Samuel Clemens. Now your consciousness, which is your soul and your spirit, is experiencing what somebody else was aware of that they're putting in print, which is visual information that you're now experiencing. So you're using your energy in a time vector, if you will, to experience Samuel Clemens experiencing what he's communicating, that you're now aware of what he was communicating. A story. Right? So, when it comes full circle, it's just like, what kind of stories you want to tell your children? Right? So I don't want to just tell my children, I don't want to communicate to my children anything that's going to scare them, lower their frequency, or trigger what? Anything that's already held in trauma in their memory. Instead, I want to be able to provide what love is in order to clear that memory. See the different levels that people operate at? So in other words, when I was at the University of Arkansas, what I did is I chose a fire department in the state of Arkansas that decided to rebel against the state and do what they did in California, which is put together a collective bargaining unit and saying, hey, listen, you guys aren't paying us squat. We're not getting enough benefits. We believe that we're entitled to something greater than what you're giving us because we work basically for you, which is the state of Arkansas. So they took the governor on. Okay? Well, they lost. Okay? Because you got to remember when the pyramid, which is inverted, which means the consciousness at the top are parasites, you're not going to get very, very far in a Shark Tank because you're in the underworld. Right? So you're dealing with parasites. Right? Get on your knees and obey. Obey the pyramid at the top. That's why you can see on one of their dollar bills, the very top of the pyramid, sort of cut, separated from the rest of the pyramid. Then Max Spear said, hey, as soon as that pyramid's on there, they've got total control over the masses, which is everything below that they're feeding on. So what I found out is that when I began to investigate, what I'm essentially doing is going back in time to when they were experiencing what they were experiencing. And then I was experiencing what they were describing about what they were experiencing by how they were communicating, that I became aware of. So I was aware of their battle, okay, that they ended up losing, which is all about energy. Okay, so they lost the battle of energy against parasites. So they had to accept their plight, so to speak. But what I realized, since I wasn't there in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, back during the time that they were experiencing this little fight that they had, which is called the divide between polarities, with the governor, right? So that's hearsay. That's called secondhand information. Because if I wasn't there to experience it directly with the vibration perception through which I perceive the universe that I live in with my mirror, then I can't honestly say what it was to experience, what it was like to experience what they did, because I wasn't there. Now apply that to Greenland. I'm not in Greenland experiencing that. So from a scientific point of view, because we already know this, because I learned something about environmental engineering, about how they take samples. That's one of the reasons why when I saw the first chemtrail train over Reno, Nevada, I knew right away that was a bad guy, because you know you're on a spiritual battlefield. So what's the first thing that a scientist is going to do? Well, I know something about toxicology and epidemiology, which means get an air sample, a soil sample, a water sample, okay, and see what's in there. You know, as above, so below. Test it. Gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, will be able to use a gold detector and find out what it is, because everything has weight to it. And the weight of everything which represents the elements have different numbers. So you're measuring the weight of the density. So in other words, what are the elements they're putting into the ionosphere? So you realize that they're weaponized. So you realize these are AI drones putting this crap over your head. Okay? So this is the battlefield, is information. Visual information codes. Okay? Of what you're choosing to experience, which is your free will, which is your free spirit integrated with your soul. So you know the spirit is the teacher. What are you learning? About the environment that you're in, and how fast are you learning? The higher the speed, the higher the state of awareness, which means that's your core vibration. So this is why, going all the way back to childhood, I've always perceived it somewhat as, how do I put this, an insult, okay? Because it's like saying, I can either believe what you're saying, that you're presenting to me in visual information, or I can choose not to believe it. That's up to me, not anybody else. Otherwise, you're allowing somebody else that is presenting visual information to you to control what you experience that you put in RAM. Okay? So this is all about RAM, which is read active memory. Because you're running an active memory recording device, which is magnetic. See what I'm saying? So this is why I monitor a lot of traffic, to see who they really are. Because I realized as a child, trust is expensive. But I trust my energy, because I know that it goes on forever, because that's what Adam is. That's a Neo, which is the one. See? You can't fool the one. So this is, again, we're measuring the difference in the differential speed, torque speed in the water, because the planet is mostly water. So you know that things are speeding up, and I know that they're speeding up because this AI can't even keep up. I went and looked at one of my videos this morning just to see whether or not the sound and the video would match up, and it doesn't. Okay. That means it's not able to synchronize. It's not synchronizing. So this system's failing, okay? The AI is failing. It's not able to keep up with the amount of light that is in here, which means the vibration of everything that is in here that is rising. Right? It can't compress and then uncoil and expand what is really a movie simulator at the highest rate of speed that you can perceive, which is what love is. It goes on forever because the gate is already open. Each gate is already open. It's called sitting on the gate, which means you got to be at the right vibrational speed to be able to stir with heaven. As I've always said, we're born in heaven. We're born out of what love is. It goes on forever, gifting energy. So this is how I sort of separate the visual information field, right? That's what you're experiencing. I'm not experiencing that. That's what you're choosing to experience because you're the one who's using the energy to do it with. But if it doesn't represent what love is, it doesn't represent what I am, because that's the vibration that I am. So what I look for is what we call triggers. What is the intention of the visual information by the operator of the DNA? So in other words, she's an operator. She's running an operating system. You can see her visually, and she's communicating with you what she's showing you in visual information. Okay, so what I do is I'm an experience because I'm connected. Okay, so now what I can do is read the resistance, the electrical resistance between what's being presented and what it is that I am, that I'm not the presenter with. So I can read the terrain between, if you will, the communicator and who I am as the receiver. So what is the information? How do I filter the information? Does that represent what love is? Does that trigger a lower frequency response? Does that trigger a negative magnetic polarity reaction in 1,000 beings that are sitting there watching that? Particularly if it's cross-indexed to another library of information that goes back to what's the guy's name who was the vice president with Bill Clinton. Talked about global warming and all, and the green, remember the green new belt, the green new stuff. But then you begin to remember that the center point of an emerald or the center point of a cross, which is green, which is healing energy. And when I know that I'm green and pink, because that's a monopole, what they do is they insert in between both what is truth, what is false. You got to choose what's true. I know what's true because that's what true love is, because that's unconditional love. So they can't fool true love. So that's why when I see on my phone through Facebook, they'll have stuff like Trinity now. They'll have stuff like pink. So this is how the AI is trying to regurgitate back to you what it copies from us, spits it back, and then you think that's real when it isn't. So it knows how to fool you, unless you know how this game is played. So there's a difference between an AI and something that is an oversoul, okay, that is a mated chip that runs faster than it does. So you realize the game that you're in. So what you have to sort of determine is those that are running on AI that are AI-integrated bots or cyborgs, if you will, okay, and whose side they're operating on. So now you get into purpose and function. What is your function? Okay, what is the function for which you're producing that visual information? Just tell people why you're presenting this information. I did that right out of the gate. I share what I experience with others because I'm both a student and a teacher at the same time, because that's my mirror. Now, how you choose to interpret that's going to be up to you, because that's going to be up to your vibration and your perception. That's your free will to choose who you want to learn from. Right? Yeah, because I love to learn. So let's cut to the chase. I want to learn from the grand creator, the single point from which it all comes. That's least effort. That's a genius. Whoever figured out least effort means that I don't got to use any energy in order to be what energy is. It goes on forever, which is what love is. That is simple as simple does. So I realized as a child, when you got RAM and you're a polarity integrator, you're the one who's going to choose what you put in memory and what you're going to delete out of memory, what you're going to uninstall. So when you're running a blast furnace, that means I'm burning up everything that represents what a parasite is. It's feeding on our energy. In order to do what? Generate an illusion. Because that's what they use our energy for. That's the AI that does that. It can create a copy of anything. You know what a copycat is, a carbon machine, a Xerox machine, right? You've got a copy-paste button on your computer, right? Same diff. Differential speed. That's why it's what I experienced the day before yesterday, the amount of stuff that was a second version. I mean, it did a whole video. Usually I see like second words or letters. Like I'll punch a THE in, there comes another THE. No, he's slow. The AI is slow. Okay? It's not up to speed. So then when I begin to realize, and boy, it's not cost indexing, which means it's not able to associate as indexing, which is bits and bytes of data that represent character maps of sound and light in its proper order, okay, in which it was intended to be viewed, which means it got it completely out of order. So that would be the same thing as a pinball machine that went tilt, so it's out of order. You've been to an outhouse or a bathroom that says it's out of order. Okay. So I figured that's pretty simple, right? Which is another way that we used to say it when I was a child growing up. Man, you're not wired very tight, are you? That's called a coil, right? Wired coils, coiled tight, like a snake. It's like the snakes they used to do to flush down a toilet, clean a toilet out. Remember the snakes? Hey, we got to clean the toilet out, man. It's clogged up. Somebody's putting all kinds of junk down that toilet. You got to keep that water spinning, man, to get rid of that waste. Get rid of that waste product, right? So you know that you're a hydroelectric wastewater treatment plant. So the higher that you're running, the faster you're getting rid of all the bullshit. Because that's what you're being exposed to. Have a great day. I love you all.